Good day, everyone. So today we will be presenting on handling criticism and praise, an important skill for personal development. Both criticism and praise are forms of feedback that influence how we grow, learn, and improve in different aspects of our lives. For my part, I will focus on how to handle criticism, discussing its purpose, how it can guide personal growth, and practical strategies to respond to it constructively. After my discussion, my partner Kyla Jane will continue by explaining how to handle praise and use it effectively to stay motivated and balanced. So let us first define what is criticism. So criticism is defined as the expression of disapproval of someone or something, usually based on perceived faults or mistakes. So at first, this sounds negative, right? But in reality, criticism can take in two forms, destructive and constructive. So, destructive criticism aims to hurt or discourage, while constructive criticism focuses on guiding us toward improvement. In personal development, we should train ourselves to recognize the difference. Instead of automatically feeling offended, it is better to see criticism as part of the learning process. After all, no one is perfect, and feedback from others often helps us to see blind spots we cannot recognize on our own. Let us now understand the main purpose of criticism. So it is to provide feedback, of course. It gives us suggestions for improvement and points out areas that need growth. Let's say, for example, our mistakes, no, when a teacher corrects us in our essay, no. So the intention is not to embarrass us, but to help us become a better writers. In life, the same applies. Criticism highlights things we need to work on. If we always reject criticism, we limit our ability to grow. But if we accept it with an open mind, criticism becomes a tool for self improvement. So instead of seeing it as a personal attack, we should try to ask ourselves, what can I learn from this? That way, even uncomfortable feedback becomes meaningful for our personal development. So, do you think criticism is more helpful in your school or in real life? And why? So, please comment down your answers, and I will read that and let's discuss it in another video. And now, let us learn how to handle criticism. So, first, stay calm and open minded. When receiving criticism, our natural reaction is often to defend ourselves or feel hurt, right? But reacting emotionally usually prevents us from learning from the feedback. So the first step is to stay calm and open minded. Take a deep breath, listen carefully, and remind yourself that the intention may be to help you, not to harm you. By staying composed, you give your space or yourself a space to process the message rather than just the tone. This makes it easier to respond respectfully and maturely. Second, evaluate the validity of criticism. Not every criticism is accurate or fair. Put that in mind. Some criticisms are based on misunderstanding, jealousy, or personal bias. That is why we need to evaluate the validity of what was said. Ask yourself, does this person have enough knowledge or authority to make this judgment? Are they pointing out something useful, or are they just being negative? When we filter criticism, we avoid being discouraged by unfair comments and instead focus only on feedback what really helps us grow. So how do you personally decide if a criticism is worth considering or ignoring? Please comment down below your answers. Third, growth mindset. Having a growth mindset means believing that our abilities can improve through effort, practice, and learning. When we adapt this mindset, we stop seeing criticism as an attack on who we are and start seeing it as a guidance for who we can become. Instead of thinking I'm bad at this, we should think I can get better at this if I learn from feedback. This perspective is powerful in personal development because it transforms challenges and criticisms into opportunities. Fourth, learn from the criticism. Criticism only becomes valuable if we learn something from it. Instead of dwelling on the negative emotions, focus on the lesson it brings. For example, if someone tells you that you need to improve communication skills, don't just feel embarrassed. Use it as a motivation to practice speaking more clearly. When we view criticism as a chance to gain wisdom, it stops being painful and starts being productive. Fifth, seek different perspectives. Sometimes One person's criticism may not give us the full picture. This is why it's helpful to ask mentors, friends, or colleagues for their perspective. Getting different opinions allows us to see whether the criticism is valid and gives us more balanced insight. For example, if one classmate criticizes you for your project but several others says it's strong, you can weigh both sides and make a fair judgment. Seeking perspective prevents overreacting to a single comment. Sixth, self-reflection. Criticism invites us to look inward and reflect. Ask yourself, why did I receive this criticism? What actions or habits contributed to it? What can I change moving forward? Self reflection helps us uncover patterns in our behavior that we may not have noticed before. Instead of simply blaming others or dismissing feedback, reflection helps us own our mistakes and grow stronger from them. This step is essential in personal development because real change begins with self awareness. Seventh, maintain a positive attitude. Finally, we must remember that criticism is not a judgment of your entire worth as a person. It is simply feedback on one specific action or behavior. So, keeping a positive attitude helps us focus on progress instead of perfection. By seeing criticism as an opportunity, we avoid being discouraged and instead become motivated to grow. As positive mindset turns criticism into a stepping stone toward becoming a better version of ourselves. In conclusion, handling criticism effectively is not about avoiding feedback or defending ourselves, but about using it as a tool for personal growth. By staying calm, evaluating the validity of the feedback, adapting growth mindset, reflecting on our actions, and maintaining a positive attitude, we can turn criticism into an opportunity to improve our skills, behavior, and overall development. With these strategies, criticism becomes less of a threat and more of a guide that helps us become a better version of ourselves. Now, I will pass the discussion to Kyla Jane, who will talk about how to handle praise and use it wisely.
Since we are already done discussing about handling criticisms, we will now move on to an important topic which is about handling praises. So let me begin by asking you a question to reflect on. So think about a time when you received a praise from a teacher, a parent, or an employer. How did you feel? Did it make you feel glad, proud, or maybe even a little uncomfortable? For many people, receiving praises is almost as difficult as handling criticism. Why? Because while criticism can challenge us, praise can sometimes confuse us, especially when we try to balance it with humility. So while praise is a positive thing, we are also called to remain humble in how we respond to it. But first, let us define the word praise. So praise, as a noun, it means an expression of admiration or approval of the achievements or characteristics of a person or thing. As a verb, it means to express warm approval or admiration of someone or something. So with this in mind, our discussion on handling praise will help us understand not only what praise is, but also how we can receive it gracefully, without pride, but also without rejecting the encouragement it gives. Now that we already know what praise means, let us move on to the types of praise. So understanding this will help us in both our personal and professional lives because how we give and receive praise affects our growth, confidence, and relationships with others. Let us now move on to the types of praises. First we have is personal praise. Like for example, someone will tell you, "You are so intelligent. You're really good at singing," or a co-teacher might say, "You have such a natural gift for explaining difficult lessons in simple ways." So, while it feels good to hear this, we must remember to stay humble and recognize that skills can always be improved. Next is effort-based praise. Like for example, a colleague might say, "I admire how much effort you put into preparing your lesson plans. Your hard work really shows." So this type of praise is empowering because it encourages us to keep improving through consistent effort. Lastly, the behavior specific praise. For example, a mentor might say, "I like how you handled that noisy class. You gave clear instructions and calmly guided the students back on track." So this type of praise is very helpful because it tells us exactly what we are doing right. So as future educators and professionals, handling praise is about balancing gratitude with humility. Alright, so now let's move on to how to handle praises. First is acknowledge the praise. So the first step to staying humble when praised is to acknowledge the praise sincerely and graciously. So in other words, the first step is to sincerely accept the compliment. Say thank you and show appreciation. Avoid brushing it off or saying things like, no, it's nothing. That might sound like false modesty. So for example, if a co-teacher says, your lesson plan was very creative, you can reply, thank you so much. I really appreciate your feedback. Number 2, share the credit. The second step to staying humble when praised is to share the credit with others who contribute to your success. So as future educators, we must remember that teaching is never a one-person job. Recognize the contributions of others, your co-teachers, mentors, or even your students. For example, if praised for a successful class activity, you might say, thank you, but I couldn't have done it without my students' cooperation and the support of my colleagues. Number 3, learn from the praise. The third step to staying humble when praised is to learn from the praise and use it as an opportunity to grow and improve. Instead of just enjoying the moment, ask yourself, what can I learn from this praise? Use it as a motivation to improve further. Just like, for example, if a supervisor says, you explained the lesson very clearly, you might think, great, I should continue using that teaching strategy and make it even better next time. Number 4, balance the praise. The fourth step to staying humble when praised is to balance the praise with other sources of information and feedback. So in other words, praise can sometimes boost our ego too much. So staying balanced means appreciating the recognition while remembering that there is always room for growth. Just like, for example, your boss says, you're the best employee on the team. So you respond, thank you. That really means a lot. I'll continue doing my best and keep improving in other areas as well. Number 5, give back the praise. The fifth step to staying humble when praised is to give back the praise and spread the positivity. So in other words, don't give the recognition for yourself, so spread positivity. Compliment others sincerely when they do well. This creates stronger professional relationships. Just like, for example, a colleague says, your idea really helped solve our project problem. So you respond, thank you. And your input during the planning stage really guided me to come up with that idea. So, why should we really handle criticism and praise? So we should handle criticism and praise because praise and criticism are just reflections of each other. So in order to properly handle criticism, you also need to properly handle praise. If someone excessively flatters you for a minor success, you need to internalize it the same way you would internalize as scathing insult. That would be all. Thank you.